everyone, and welcome. Welcome to today's Love Chat. I'm Gladys Diaz, and I'm so happy to be here with you today as we talk about what are some. I think it's one of the things that isn't talked about, excuse me, as often as it could be, but it comes up a lot, especially when Michelle and I are doing coaching sessions, Q&A sessions, VIP sessions, and women are sharing with us that there's this anxiety that they feel, especially if they've been communicating with somebody. Maybe there's been, I mean, you got to let me know. You got to let me know if this is something that you relate to, where you're communicating pretty regularly with someone, and then all of a sudden the communication stops and you're not sure what's happening. Or you feel like you had a great date and you send your thank you text message and then there's no response, or the last text message that you sent, you keep picking up your phone going, or pretending like you're not looking at your phone, looking to see, did he text back, is he gonna call, do we have a date? Like, am I making this up? Because I'm not seeing anything in the comments. Like, is this something that you go through where you feel a little bit of anxiety when you're dating and you're texting with someone and either there isn't any response coming, or your it's not, maybe it's not as regular as it was when at one point maybe there was a lot of communication and then it stops, or you see that he read a message. Here's a good one. You see that he read the message, and why in the world is he not responding, right? Like, why hasn't he responded? So there actually is a phenomenon called dating and text anxiety, and I actually spent some time doing some research. And the main reason why this why texting in and of itself does not cause anxiety. Even somebody not responding to your message is not what causes the anxiety. What's causing the anxiety is everything that you're making up about why things slow down, or why the person hasn't answered your text, or why he's taking so long, or why he hasn't made the plans. Is he going to make the plans? It's the thinking about what's happening, that actually, the overanalyzing it, that actually creates the anxiety. So especially if for example, you've been having a pretty, what seems like a good, hey Christine, Christina, thank you for for letting me know that I'm not talking to myself. She's like, true, right? Especially if there seems to have been some flow back and forth, and all of a sudden you're not seeing the same level of the communication. What starts to happen is you might start over analyzing. So you start dissecting your message, his message, the last 5-10 messages, trying to see if you said or did something wrong. A lot of times that's the first thing. Like, if that happens to you, that you start dissecting, like going back, scrolling up and down to see what was the last message, or did I say or do something wrong, go ahead and put a D for dissecting. For dissecting and over analyzing, let's go ahead and put a D. What starts to happen is you start to look for the reason why the person is not responding back to you. Then what could also happen is when you sense that there's been a lot of silence, an easy, like a temptation that there might be, is to then send another message, like, oh, maybe he didn't see it, and it's called, it's referred to as double texting. So you send another message, or you send the, hey, how are you doing? A lot of women tell us, well, what if something happened to him? Like, shouldn't I reach out to him? Shouldn't I look to see if he's okay? But what's really happening is that you have a fear. Now, your brain doesn't say, hey, you have a fear. What it says is, what if something happened to him? What if he is in an accident? But what's underneath that is, what if he just doesn't want to respond? Like, what happened? And so what starts to happen is there's this fear of rejection that hasn't even happened yet. Maybe this person never does write back to you. But here's the thing. In order for somebody to reach rejection anyways is, I don't think I have time to, it's a whole nother love chat. But no one's ever really rejecting you. And especially when you're first getting to know somebody, the person doesn't know you well enough to like you or not like you or reject you. You're just in a phase of getting to know one another. But the brain doesn't know how to tell the difference between what's actually happening, which is somebody just hasn't responded to the text message, and you fearing that this means that it's never going to work out, that you're always going to be by yourself, that men just are players, that this is just a scammer, that this is another catfish. And your brain, do you see it like that? It's like this domino effect. One thought hits another thought, hits another thought, hits another thought. And that's what's actually causing the anxiety. Now, another thing is, and this is just a nature of what's happened in, let's just call it technology, society, is that we're so used to like that instant hit, that instant gratification. Somebody texts me, I text back, and it comes back, that the lapse in time could actually be what's generating the anxiety. But again, if you go like a few layers underneath that, it's because you're afraid that the person is not going to answer. And then the fear under that is why you think this person isn't answering. Did you do something wrong? Did you say something wrong? Did you mess things up? Right? So that really is what's causing the biggest, the underlying reasons of what's causing that anxiety. Now, the brain will argue. Maybe you're having a conversation with your brain right now so loud you can't even hear me. Right? So the brain but it's happened before, right? That's happened to me before. And past experiences, especially if they're negative, especially if you had your hopes very high, or you stopped talking to other people, you stopped dating other people, and you got emotionally attached to somebody, the brain will say, but it has happened to me before, right? And I don't want to go through that again. So it's trying to avoid a past experience. Another thing, like I mentioned, like you got attached to somebody. So if you have a very anxious attachment style, when somebody doesn't respond, doesn't reach out, doesn't communicate, doesn't say hi, doesn't say good morning, doesn't say good night, that starts to amplify your anxiety, and you'll start again looking to see what happened, what did I do wrong, what did I say wrong, why is this happening to me again. And that really is what's causing the anxiety. So there, I've talked about a few of the reasons. I'm not seeing that many comments. So is this okay, Lisa, there we go, right? But she said recovered dissector here, right? And I've got several D's. So what is it for you? If you're willing to play, right? If you're really willing to engage here, what do you of the reasons that I said that might be underlying? What are some of the big things that come up for you when all of a sudden either communication stops, or the person hasn't responded for a while, or it just stops altogether? What is it that comes up for you? What are the thoughts that come up for you? Because I want to make this meaningful. I want to make it relevant. I don't just want to sit here and teach. I want to be able to make it. I want this to make a difference for you. And so think about it. Like, what is the thought that comes up the moment that, especially if it's somebody that you really were enjoying the conversation, or you just liked his picture, his profile picture, or there's something, right, that's kind of like making you like this person. Let's see if we get, and I know it takes a few seconds for Facebook to catch up with our live stream. So I was always investigating. So what was having you investigate, Teresa? Think about the thoughts, right? Everybody think about the thoughts, right? This is the kind of coaching we give our clients. You want to think about the thought that, because usually, think about it this way. I want you to imagine that this is an arrow, right? So there's a thought. The thought triggers an emotion. And then the emotion triggers a behavior, an action. So if you want to change a behavior, you got to reverse engineer it and kind of go back to, well, what was I feeling and what was having me feel that way? What was the thought? So I see I'm an anxious attachment, and I don't remember being that way when I'm young. So what I see, Jeannie, is that you're noticing that maybe something happened. So I want you to think about what is it that's everybody, not just Jeannie. Those of you watching our replay, if you're watching our replay, go ahead and put hashtag replay. For those of you who watch this after the fact, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and put YT for YouTube so we know where you're watching. But think about the thoughts. One of the biggest breakthroughs that the women that we work with have is that you actually start having an empowered relationship with your thoughts, with your brain, where instead of your thoughts taking over, sending you into a spin, into a panic attack, into isolation, right? And shutting everyone and everything out, you're actually able to think about the thoughts. And then you can take some, I was going to say committed action, but it's not even that. You think about the thought in the space that you create, you're actually able to an empowered action. Okay. So what is it that makes you feel anxious? I missed the, oh, hey, Catherine. So we're talking about the reasons. You can always come back and watch the replay, but we're talking about what causes text anxiety, what it is that has you get anxious when somebody stops texting, when or there's a pause, there's a lapse in the texting, and now you're like driving yourself crazy, continuing to pick up the phone every 2 seconds, or every time your phone flashes or beeps, you're wondering if it's him, right? There's a series of actions that take place, but it's not the texting itself or the lack of texting. It's what's going on internally that's wreaking havoc on your nervous system, on your ability to just enjoy the dating process, because there's all of this presumption about why this is happening, right? So and you're not alone if you're experiencing this, right? There's been studies done, and the average is about 65% of people experience anxiety when it comes to dating. So again, when it comes to women, like the ones who are drawn to us in our community, who are highly driven, you're used to getting things done, you're used to, like, cause and effect, action reaction, and then all of a sudden there's a lapse or a pause. There's something that happens up here that gets triggered, and then it starts the either texting right away or getting angry. Some people get angry right away. Some people get very like doom and gloom, like, oh, this is why it's never going to happen for me. This always happens to me. This is such a waste of time. I'm better off alone. Right? So that's what I'm trying to get you all to think about, because if you don't understand what is actually triggering the anxiety, meaning the thought that you have, then what happens is you're thinking that texting or online dating or meeting people is what's causing your anxiety. But that's not the case. It's the thinking about what's happening, or making up, right? Making up a story, or attaching, we call it also attaching a meaning to what's happening or not happening, that's literally triggering an emotional response. And then that emotional response, in some cases anxiety, in some cases anger, in some cases like wanting to like shut it all down and just be single for the rest of your life. There's something that's happening, and we want you all to feel empowered so that your thoughts are not the ones controlling what you do, what you say, what you don't do, and what you don't say. Okay. So the real reason that this is happening, like I said, is the thought. Not getting, I'm going to keep checking here. So, okay. So I got some thoughts coming. Thank you. There goes another one. And I can't get them to like me. Like, there goes another one. Like, there's another one either. That can mean there goes another one by, another one gone. And why can't I get this person to like me? Like, what's missing? Sometimes most people say, like, what's wrong with me? I start thinking, did I do something wrong? And then I reach out, but after a while, I'm the only one reaching out. I go back to the trigger of, I'm just going to step back, right? So stepping back is not, we always say step back, because when you step back, it gives him a chance to either stay where he is, he steps back, or you've left some room for him to step up. But if you're always the one who's sending the first message and the next message and trying to keep that conversation going, you never really find out if he was thinking about you and he just sent you a text message because he was thinking about you, or if he's just being polite and responding, or if something actually did happen. Another thought that comes up, see, they're not telling the truth, so that's why they stop talking, right? So these are, do you see the thoughts? There's already a belief. The belief is what's getting triggered. The belief, where does it come from? A thought, a belief, a fear. Where do they all come from? They come from the past. So it's the past that's triggering the anxiety in the present. And PS, by the way, it's triggering it into the future. right? Because that's where it's never going to happen. This is a waste of time. I'm just better off alone. Maybe I wasn't meant to be in a relationship. Maybe I was created to be single. We've heard it all. None of it is true. You're not the one person on the planet who was created to be alone. But that's where your brain will go because it feels safer there, right? That's what I mean about the isolation, the shutting it all down. You see anybody, I must be doing something wrong. All right. So now that, and of course, if you've never had a love breakthrough session with one of our coaches, because there's some of the ladies who are here, they're getting coaching from us, so we can take the conversation offline, so to speak, and continue giving the deeper coaching. But once you know that it's a thought, that it really is, it's really not about him. Consider that there's some insecurities about yourself, especially if the very first thing is, what did I do wrong? Right? You may have a belief that you're going to mess things up, or that you messed something up in the past and now you're afraid you're going to mess it up again. You're so afraid of making that mistake again, right? That when something happens, it's the first thing that comes up. How you rewire your brain, by first step is thinking about the thought. What is it that's getting triggered? And then you want to go underneath that and you want to say, okay, well, if all that happened was that this person didn't answer me, does that really mean that I'm never going to be in love, that it's never going to work, that he's a player, that he's a liar, that, I'm doomed to be alone for the, is that really what this means? And again, I want to give you like a little, preview, that your brain will say yes. Like your brain wants to say, yes, that's what it means. Especially if it's happened before, it'll say, absolutely, that's what it means. Right. But when you excuse me, when you get that it isn't that, sometimes the person, look, honestly, we always recommend that you're dating more than one person. And the reason we do it, especially for those of you who have anxious attachment, you want to be talking to and dating more than one person and not stopping everything with everyone else the moment that you feel like attracted to somebody, is because it helps with this anxiety and the attachment. When you're talking to 4 or 5 people, if one person isn't texting, there are 4 other people who are. And you want to pay attention to who is, right? Because if you also have a dysfunctional pattern of going after the one that's the bad boy, or if you have a belief that love is hard, and so if the guy who's, being reliable and texting every day and calling you and asking you out feels boring compared to the one who every once in a while ends up reaching out to you, you want to look at that, because you may have created what we call a love formula, that love is hard, or love has to be a struggle, or you have to prove, for the person who said, why can't I get them to like me, right? You have to prove yourself so that they'll choose you versus you being the chooser, right? So it's possible that the other person is chatting with multiple people and may pop up a day or 2 or a week later. And that doesn't mean that you're whatever, I don't even like the term sloppy seconds or second choice or anything. It's not that. They were just engaged in another conversation, just like you could be with other people. And then they got back to you. When he does reach out, you can say, hey, it's great to hear from you. I was wondering what happened, instead of, well, if you think that you're going to, I mean, yes, I do have women who have said that. Well, if you think you're just going to like text me whenever the heck you want, you don't even know this person. Like, he doesn't owe you anything. He doesn't have to text you once a month. He doesn't have any obligations, right? But if you are happy to hear from somebody, you can say, oh, it's great to hear from you. I didn't, I wonder what happened, right? And that would open up the opportunity to talk, to keep the conversation going, especially if you really are interested in continuing to get to know him. So the way you rewire your brain is, first of all, you realize that what's happening is happening, like just the facts of what's happening, and that it doesn't mean anything about you, that it doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. Now, if you know that you already have insecurities, that's why I was talking before about, if you've never had a love breakthrough session, our team dropped the link, because that's something that we want to get. There's usually like 3 or 4 layers to get underneath, like what's actually creating or causing the insecurity. But if you don't get yourself to a place where you feel secure in yourself, where you're not waiting for somebody's text to validate you or to prove that you're worthy of love, where you don't depend on anybody. There's nothing outside of you that can give you value or worth. If that's something you want to transform the relationship with yourself, you absolutely, and you've never had a love breakthrough session, you absolutely want to do that, because especially if this kind of thing keeps happening, and where you first go is that you did something wrong, there's something wrong with you, or you're not meant to be in relationships, you want to start to rewire your brain to realize that somebody else's actions have nothing to do with your value, your worth, but also how do you stay in an empowered state, so that when somebody doesn't show up the way you hope they would, or they send you a text message or don't send you a text message that that you weren't expecting, then you don't go off into your own spiral and you don't take yourself out of your own power, right? The best way to start to rewire your brain is to really strip away and replace all of the disempowering thoughts, fears, and beliefs that created the dysfunctional patterns in the first place and are triggering these emotions for you. And it doesn't have to take years and years and years of therapy either. When you know how to identify what's in the way, how to break through it, and how to replace it, you can do it literally. With enough practice, you can get to a place where you can go from feeling disempowered and triggered to feeling peaceful and empowered in 30 to 90 seconds. So imagine if in your life you were only disappointed 30 to 90 seconds at a time versus 3 days, 3 hours, 3 weeks, 3 months, and for some people, 3 years, right? So that's a pretty powerful way to be in life. And the number one shift that you can make that'll have you focus on what actually builds attraction, what actually creates that sense of empowerment in who you are, the woman that you are, and who you are and what you are up to, right? Is creating real confidence, not an arrogant, I'm better than you, type of confidence, but the real confidence in yourself, in knowing that the right person is there. There is someone who's already looking for you, that is the right match for you, and that you're not going to have to wonder. You're not going to have to wonder that instead of you waiting for somebody to choose you, that you know yourself to be the one who's choosing, and that you get to step back and allow a man to step up and to show up, to show you his interest, to show you that he really does want to see you, that he does want to talk to you, that he does want to get to know you, right? When you step into that kind of empowerment, and again, I'm not talking about better than you type thing. That's not what we mean when we talk about empowerment and confidence. It really is that knowingness within yourself, that you trust yourself, number one, to recognize when somebody's the right person or not. Then you also trust yourself enough to know that you really are the one who gets to choose. And transforming the relationship that you have with yourself is the most valuable thing that you could ever do. And it is the surefire way to end any anxiety around dating, whether it's text anxiety, or he's not asking me out anxiety, or is this, where is this going anxiety, or is he ever going to propose anxiety? Like, there's all different, every phase of relationships could trigger a new fear and trigger anxiety. So if you want to be that woman who knows herself, who trusts herself, who feels empowered and valued within herself, and doesn't need the outside validation from somebody else's words or behaviors, and you've never had a love breakthrough session, you absolutely want to make sure that you click on that link. We can go ahead and drop it again so that you can have a conversation. In that conversation, the first conversation, we usually have two conversations, and the first one is just to really get to know you and get to know what are your goals when it comes to love and relationships. What is that you ultimately want, and what are some of the things like this that are getting in the way? And if you were able to get that out of the way, what love, relationships, dating could look and feel like for you. And then our coaches are trained to say, okay, here are 1, 2, 3 steps that you could take in order to start turning this around. If they feel that you're really a good fit, they probably will recommend that you speak to another coach so that you could talk about the possibility of working with us and what that would look like. You know, if it's the right fit, we make an invitation. And of course, you always get to choose because you are the chooser, whether or not you would like to step into a program. But those conversations, in those first conversations, it really is gives you so much clarity. But beyond clarity and awareness, you actually get real steps that you can take into your life right now so that you can start to shift the experience that you're having in dating and relationships, especially if it's causing you a lot of anxiety, sadness, frustration. Then you absolutely want to make sure that you do something. I was talking to somebody the other day and I said, I always use this analogy like an allergy. If I went out to dinner at a restaurant that I always go to, and all of a sudden, the next day or a few hours later, I start to feel my throat swelling, my tongue swelling, my arms are full of hives, I'm having trouble breathing. It would be insane for me not to go, what did I eat? What could be causing this? So that I don't do it again. So that I don't go through that experience, which could be very, if that's ever happened to you, know, it could be very, very scary. So this conversation is what gives you the opportunity to say, what is it that's actually getting in the way, that's creating the symptoms, like the texting anxiety, like the dating anxiety, like the wondering, like, is this ever going to happen for me anxiety, and what to do instead. Okay, so I think I have a question here. Hold on a second. Should I text him or and see if he texts me? We went from texting every day and now every once in a while. Here's what I'll say. If you were texting every day and it was actually, here's a good distinction. And I always have these moments of flash of brilliance right at the end. If the conversation was actually what I call real getting to know you conversation, meaning you were learning about him and he was interested in learning about you, and all of a sudden it stopped, I can understand why you would want to text him first. But here's why we recommend that you don't. If he's not texting, why would you want to text him? I know that, okay, because we've had, we've been having these conversations for over 30 years with women, and over 16 here in Heart's Desire. The brain will say, well, I want to know if something's wrong. I want closure, right? What if you just said to, and I'm not saying to say this to yourself, I highly recommend, if you haven't had a love breakthrough session, to have one, because what if you were secure enough in yourself that if somebody's not reaching out to me, I don't need their closure. I can say, you know what? It would be nice to keep getting to know him. I don't know why he's not texting me. And just keep talking to the people who are reaching out. Now, if people aren't reaching out and you're not really experiencing good connections online, another reason to set up a call, because there's something that's happening that's getting in the way. So we would want to help you with that. We'd want you to absolutely not keep experiencing that. But ladies, if you tend to tell yourself that the reason you reach out is to get closure, why are you depending on somebody else's answer to create closure for yourself? You could either decide, you know what, this wasn't somebody I was enjoying the conversation with, or if you were, it'd be nice to have a conversation. If he ever reaches out again, I'll continue the conversation. But you don't need closure from somebody else in order for you to move on. Does that make sense? Lisa, let me know. Marilyn had the same question. Thank you, Janet. She said you're brilliant. Because I had these pops like at 3 minutes to before we're supposed to end. So is there any other question? I can go ahead and answer a question. Oh, I love that insight. I used to be aloof, scared of men, but aloof comes off like I don't care, I'm standoffish, right? So I felt I should try harder to overcompensate. This is the third time that overcompensating comes up today in a conversation for me. I always call those God whispers. Whenever something happens 3 times in a row, God's trying to tell me something. So maybe, I don't know, Marin, I'll write it down. That might be a good topic for a love chat. But you tend to want to overcompensate. This is where people become overly chatty or ask a lot of questions, or maybe you send 3 questions in a row, right? Hoping that it'll keep the conversation going, or overcompensating and trying to be like overly nice. And this can happen in texting, and it can happen when you're having your video conference calls or your telephone conference calls, or even your in-person dates. So again, because she's been working with us. She realizes that there was actually a fear. Now, the work to do is, what am I afraid of? There's always the question to ask yourself whenever you're starting to get a hint that there's, anxiety is a reflection of fear. That's why I've been talking so much about fears. But what is it that I'm afraid is going to happen? What am I afraid is not going to happen? And if you can go deeper, and of course our coaches can help you get really to the what we call the root fear, right? What's really underneath the one that you see, then you actually have a shot at not just breaking through that, but replacing it with something that empowers you versus causes you anxiety. Okay. So, great job, Lisa. He's like, I registered. She got her call. Coachable. First question we ask is, are you coachable? So I say yes to Lisa. All right. So those of you watching on replay, if you've got a question, make sure you ask it. We'll come back. Somebody on our team will absolutely reach out to you. You can go ahead and click on that link if you've never had a Love Breakthrough call, even if you're watching this on YouTube, on another platform, or on replay. Okay. As long as we have spots available, you can go ahead and grab one. And so remember that what if somebody stops texting you, or you haven't gotten the answer to the text message that you were hoping for, or in the amount of time that you were hoping for, and you notice yourself getting anxious, the first thing you want to remind yourself is that this doesn't mean anything about me. This doesn't have anything to do with me, with how worthy I am, with how lovable I am. You want to tell yourself that right off the bat. And you want to remind yourself that if you think about the relationship that you want to be in for the rest of your life, if it doesn't include being anxious and wondering if the person likes you, then this person is not right for you. Or you just haven't gotten to know them well enough to know whether or not they are. So remember that if they pop back in, you don't need to chastise them or call them out on the carpet or make them feel bad. It's just like, oh, I was wondering what happened. It's so nice to hear from you again, if it's somebody that you really want to continue the conversation with. And now, if that person keeps, after a while, this is a pattern that shows up, you get to choose whether or not it's somebody that you want to keep engaging with, right? It's not up to him. It's up to you. It's your life. It's your choice. It's your dream relationship. So you get to make the choices that are aligned with that. All right. So I hope that this was helpful. If it was helpful, go ahead and put an H in the chat just so that I know. Not that I'm seeking your validation, but it's important to us that these love chats make a difference for you. They're like mini doses of the, of inspiration, of obviously education, and we want you to take all of it and create a transformation. By the way, you want to make sure, and I don't know if she's ready for this, but you want to make sure to join our YouTube channel, because Facebook is now only leaving live streams up for 30 days. Okay, so these if you tend to be someone who goes back and watches the love streams, you can go to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel doesn't have all of the ones we've ever done, because we didn't know this was going to happen, but it does have quite a few love chats that you can go back, and maybe it's even easier for you to watch it on YouTube, because you can search for in the channel for very specific topics. We always try to make sure that the title of the love chat tells you what the topic is actually about, what we're actually talking about. So thank you for dropping that. We'll make sure that we also send some emails to our list. If you're not on our email list, you need to get on there. I don't know what else we could drop. But actually, if you're not on our email list yet, if you're not getting emails from us, go ahead and write the word email, and somebody on our team will reach out to you. We don't want you putting your email address out there for everybody to see, since that's your private information. But if you're not on our email list, go ahead and put email. We'll make sure that we add you. We'll send you a little something as a gift in response. And that way, we're going to be sending out emails to remind people that the love chats are going to be coming down. I can't remember the exact date, but the old ones, the ones that we've done for years and years and years, we've been doing this for so many years, they're all coming down. So we're going to put as many of them as we can on the YouTube channel. But imagine 16, I think we've been doing love chat with the Love Twins at least, I don't know what the oldest one is. I want to say 2015, 2016. There's no way we're going to have the time to download all of them and put them on YouTube. But you can start following us on YouTube. You can start looking at the love chats there and get your, you can go there as many times as you want, even if Facebook takes these down in 30 days. All right. So you're welcome, Peg. I'm glad it was helpful. Thank you, Danielle and Teresa, for letting me know that it was helpful for you too. And until our hearts meet again, always remember that you are loved. Bye for now.